My name is Mets RSL, and over the years, I've become popular on the internet for my, let's say, dedication for the Mets. But outside of the satirical content, I'm a diehard baseball and Mets fan who's an absolute nerd for the game. With that said, this is my take on why the 2023 New York Mets failed. First reason the 2023 New York Mets failed was the roster construction with the two 40-year-old co-aces. Pulling two grandpas from the shuffleboard at the retirement home and building your whole team around them is like having a fourth grader fight John Jones. I mean, what do you really expect? Starting with Max Scherzer, although he posted an excellent 2022 campaign, he was coming into the season off pooping the bed in the wildcard game. In my opinion, that disaster was just a trailer of what his future with the Mets was going to look like. In Max's first year with the Mets in 22, he put up an ERA of 2.29, ERA plus of 169, and a whip of .91. Even at the ripe age of 38, Mad Max showed the tenacity and that will to win all season, which carried the Mets rotation that struggled with injuries. Unfortunately, 2023 was a much different story for Max as he put up an ERA of over 4, an ERA plus of just 105, and a whip of 1.18. Heavy fall off from the year prior, and everybody knew he wasn't getting any younger, but no one predicted this kind of fall off for Max. Not only did Scherzer get hit harder than Marcell Ozuna's wife, but he experienced the same problems you would expect from an almost 40-year-old pitcher. Later on in the season, when traded to the Rangers, he would experience the same dead arm from 2021, which would hold him back from the whole last month of the season and multiple starts in the playoffs. And when he did come back, bro was not helping too much.
This one's clubbed, left field and deep. Going back to Veras, still going back, it's gone!
In the 2023 playoffs, World Series champion Max Scherzer would post a 6.5 ERA and a 1.66 whip. I mean, he just gave off heavy kid-in-the-group project who does absolutely nothing vibes. I mean, if you told us Mets fans back in spring training that Max Scherzer would win a ring this year, we would have been going ecstatic. Moving on to the second of this duo of the co-ace mentality that the New York Mets had coming into the 2023 season is Justin Verlander. Verlander had a really slow start before picking it up, and coming off a Cy Young season, almost impossible to replicate, and adding another year to that age was a disaster from the start. JV would start the year in typical Mets fashion, missing the entire first month of the season before coming back and getting spanked by his former team. Like, how do you let Javi Baez homer off you? That's embarrassing. Verlander would post an atrocious almost 5 ERA in May, where he would just get hit hard, give up home runs, and just looked off. In a time where Max Scherzer's age was also starting to show and he was struggling, and bums like Carlos Carrasco, Tyler McGill, etc. were out there just giving up 5-6 runs every night, Justin Verlander really let the Mets down. JV would start to figure it out a little bit, dropping his ERA down to the low 3s for the month of June, before absolutely taking off and locking in back to his prime Justin Verlander self, posting a 1.3 ERA and just dominating. It's a shame us Mets fans only got a small taste of what a locked-in JV could do on the mound. As of August 1st, 2023, the Mets would trade him back to the Astros for Drew Gilbert and Ryan Clifford, ultimately putting the final exclamation point on the failure of the co-aces of 2023. Verlander and Scherzer were definitely a massive failure for 2023, but to be fair, the rest of the Mets rotation was one of the worst in the league, as Carlos Carrasco, David Peterson, Tyler McGill, and etc. would all just struggle mightily. I mean, Carlos Carrasco, and I'm not joking when I say this, posted a 6.8 ERA through the 2023 season. I mean, if you gave me a whole offseason to prepare and threw me out there, I genuinely don't think I could be much worse than that. The Mets had one of the best offenses in Major League Baseball in 2022, which depended on amazing seasons from Starling Marte, batting title winner Jeff McNeil, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, and etc. The lack of production in these key bats would cause for the Mets team OPS drop from 6th in 2022 all the way to 18th in 2023, causing for an overall lackluster offense compared to expectations in spring training, and the leading culprits have the stats to tell the story. Just to give you an idea of the downfall, I'm going to tell you the players' names with their 2022 OPS plus, followed by their 2023 OPS plus. Batting title winner Jeff McNeil went from a 140 down to a below average 96. Starling Marte from a 132 to a 73. Pete Alonso from a 146 to a 122, and even some supporting cast members like Daniel Vogelbach from a 139 to a 104, and Mark Canha from a 122 to a mid-100. Although Lindor and Nimmo would put up almost identical offensive numbers to the prior year, the rest of these guys could not say the same. Most surprising out of all these players had to be Jeff McNeil, who went from the batting champ in the NL and a key staple in the top of the lineup to a below-average hitter in 2023. McNeil just simply was not hitting the ball hard. His baseball savant numbers are embarrassing. He was in the very bottom percentile in exit velocity, barrel percentage, and hard hit rate. Most of this was attributed to fastballs, where his run values on sinkers went from a +10 to a 1, and four-seamers from a 4 to a -4. Even with McNeil's elite eye and plate discipline, his struggle to square off the baseball would play a huge role in his downfall, and it was honestly sad to see from a batting title winner. Another guy who struggled to square up the baseball was Starling Marte, who struggled in the same stats as McNeil all season and would deal with nagging injuries all season long. Groin problems, finger problems, and even migraines. We barely saw Marte on the field this season, and I wish it stayed like that because when he was out there, it was pathetic. And finally, quite literally, the Mets' biggest producer on their offensive side of the ball, Pete Alonso, who looked like an MVP candidate to start the season, would not stay that way. Getting drilled on the hand after his clown moment in Atlanta and missing a whole month, he would never come back the same after that, and neither would the Mets.
Throw it again, please! Throw it again!
After the Mets would get clowned and swept right out of Atlanta, Pete Alonso would find himself on the injured list for over a month, and after coming back, he really never found that groove again. Alonso went from MVP numbers and dominating to just an .833 OPS in July and a .768 in September. Some honorable mentions on why the Mets were the Mets in 2023 was definitely that bullpen. Without Diaz, too, I mean, it was just terrible. I mean, they almost never had a lead in the first place, but when they did, it was gone. Or putting too much pressure on young rookies like Brett Baty or Mark Vientos, who just played absolutely atrocious in 2023. 2023 was just a total disaster and a failure for the Mets. And as of recording this right now in mid-January, the Mets still have a lot of work to do. Still need a couple more starters, a DH because Mark Vientos is not it. And Diaz coming back is definitely going to help that bullpen, but there's still a lot of nobodies in there, and it's just a mess. David Stearns has a lot of work to do. I hope the Mets aren't just punting 2024 as a fan because that's such a loser mentality. I mean, I could make it a whole nother entire video on what the Mets need in 2024 to improve, and I probably will, but for now, that's all. Peace out, guys.